Welcome to the Rhino Rank podcast, where we dive into all things marketing, SEO, and business growth. As always, I'm Jack, and today Jess and I are taking a look back at how SEO has evolved and where it's headed next. And who better to guide us than someone who's lived through every algorithm update, trend shift, and industry shake-up over the last 20 years, Lukasz Zelezny. Lukasz is a true veteran of the SEO world. With over 2 decades of hands-on experience, he's partnered with some of the UK's biggest brands and earned a reputation for staying ahead of the curve. Renowned for his ability to blend deep technical know-how with practical, results-driven strategies, he consistently delivers real impact for real businesses. In this episode, we cover what's changed, what stayed the same, and how to keep growing in an ever-evolving digital world. Lukasz, welcome to the podcast. We've got plenty to talk about today. There's lots of things we'd like to discuss with you. I think the best thing to do to begin with would be to get some insight from you into your experience, where you started, how did you deep dive into the world of SEO, and how did you get where you are today?
We need to go back more than 20 years. It started quite unusual, like most of SEOs have an unusual stories. I was quite active on the music scene and I was trying to get some gigs I could play at. And then I built a website because I was building website from mid 90s, late 90s. Then, like slowly I was thinking like, all right, so where to get traffic? Then Google, I remember the first time I saw Google, I think it was in 1999, if I'm correct. And I really fall into this kind of design. Like there was no adverts, no weather, nothing. I was like, that's quite cool. Slowly later, there were very early stage traffic trackers. Like in Poland, when I was living back in the day, there was something called Stats for You that was way before Google Analytics era. Then, slowly I understood that that can be actually something that I can live on when music can be just like a hobby. I feel like music is more for art. When SEO is also, there is lots of things that can be considered to be an art. So then, 2007, fast forward, I moved to England and I started living in London. And since then, I was working in various companies, always in-house, and always had my side job helping other companies to improve their SEO. I was working more like a consultant. I was trying to be not a freelancer, not an agency, something which is completely unique. And that gave me opportunity to work with lots of in-house team of various companies across Britain, across Europe. I had clients from Hong Kong, from States, from Israel, from China. So yeah, that was a very exciting story. And here we are with SEO London.
That's incredible. It's like you've worked with almost any company you can think of in any country you can think of at the same time. So the amount of like knowledge and experience you must have picked up from like all of those projects must be immense.
Yes, and that gave me also this confidence that in SEO, you don't even need to know the language when you're working as an SEO consultant. For example, my website is translated into various languages. I'm getting inquiries from Italy, from Spain, from Czech Republic, from Lithuania, from Ukraine. And, I remember when I was doing a gap analysis, so my client versus competitors, and I was doing this in Arabic. And you can imagine that I don't speak Arabic. And I always remember this anecdote that there was a medicine manufacturer doing pills for headache, and they make like a story about the guy who had a headache, then he took a pill, and then he's healthy. And they target Arabic market, and they didn't consider that they are reading other way around. So it looked like the healthy guy took a pill and become sick. That was really interesting anecdote. But yeah, like the same with Ukrainian language, which is different alphabet. The same with Hebrew, which is also different alphabet. When you're looking on the keywords through the perspective of metrics, the language is not that important to be fluent. And also, you mentioned, Jess, that I was working in various industries, but still, I sometimes have a question like, did you ever work with, and then it is something super exotic, selling plots on the moon? I was like, no, I did not work with any company before that is selling plots on the moon, but I am confident that I can help you. So yeah.
I think that resonates very much with how we approach link building at Rhino Rank. SEO is for pretty much everybody that has a website, like you say, Lukasz, and it's very similar to the way we work with link building. Obviously, we're based in the UK, and unfortunately, we can only work with the English language when building links, but we can work with pretty much everybody. You name it, you name a country, we've probably worked there, primarily work in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. But when we often get asked by clients, oh, have you ever worked with this industry before, this niche before? We probably have. We've worked extensively in pretty much every niche you can think of, from the fitness industry, gambling, casino, health, lifestyle, insurance, beauty, onto the more, let's say, local based companies, the smaller based companies like resin driveway companies or lawn care companies. And that's the beauty of SEO. If you have a website, you could try to optimize that website. You can build links to that website, which makes everybody's lives a little bit more interesting in the SEO industry, because there's plenty to work with. There's plenty of variation.
Absolutely.
So obviously we've gone through an intro into your experience. I'm just looking at some of the questions we've got lined up for you, and I feel like they're going to be fantastic to get your insights. So when we take a look at Google's updates, obviously they've just launched another core update, and we've already seen some fluctuations straight away. It's great. But when we look at the likes of the Panda and Penguin updates, and obviously, like I say, these updates are happening all the time, how do you navigate these updates? How do you navigate these changes to the algorithms when working directly with clients?
Very simple. I am assuming that algorithm update is happening all the time. And the reason why is because I was doing even an exercise. I went to SC Roundtable of Barry Schwartz. God bless him, he's doing a great job. But I noticed when I was analyzing his articles that every 2.5 days there is article about algorithm update. So analyzing anything like that doesn't make much sense. And you can assume that the algorithm update is constant. And this is one story. The second story is that my experience works following way. If you are not trying to cut the corners, if you are not trying to do something ridiculously silly, for example, now we have an AI, let's dump 300 articles, boom, the floodgate of traffic. Now let's put this on LinkedIn. I saw this in the past. Someone put this on LinkedIn, spike like that. My clients on Slack are like, have you seen this? I was like, guys, take it easy. It will go down almost immediately. 2 weeks later, not even an algorithm update, like manual action maybe, or algorithm update too, and everything is crashing. So on the other hand, I have a client who is dealing with jewelry. Now, he came to me many years ago and he said to me, I would like to have a online store, e-commerce, and I would like to do an SEO and so on and so on. We started working almost a decade ago, and we're still working. We're working together. There is no such a hockey stick. There is no, it's not going like that, but it's steadily growing, that is keeping that traffic. Another example, CBD. CBD, you cannot advertise on paid as far as I know. But I said, like, listen, let's go into this steadily and consequently. Do not expect that within like 2 weeks you will get like a hockey stick and so on. And we're working, I think, second year or something like that. And when the algorithm update is coming, it doesn't make me scared. Of course, there is a possibility that the website will drop, but this is a consequence of the fact that the system is so complicated right now.
Yeah.
That sometimes you can get with the ricochet, and that is bringing a problem. Sometimes there are websites that have been consequently growing, then the algorithm update came, they dropped. And the potential client is coming to me and saying like, Lukasz, we would like you to find a reason and fix it. And it's sometimes very hard for me to explain, like, listen, I can fix this from now onward doing good SEO, because they drop not because of the bad SEO. Yeah, they drop because of the algorithm update and so on. Ahrefs, I think, dropped, HubSpot dropped, and I don't assume that these two websites were doing anything bad. It's the same like the stock market. Yeah, stock market. in the very long term, it will be going up, but there can be some fluctuation and so on and so on and so on. So, sometimes, especially people who are not in SEOs, they expect that they will come to me. I will pinpoint that one thing that is responsible for the drop. They will fix this and they will get back to what they were. And I'm explaining them that, listen, you comparing your traffic from the year ago, and that was different environment and different kind of SEO versus what we have today. We can start working from that moment and start doing a good SEO and see a growth that will on some point start delivering more traffic that you had before that drop happened, and you are happy. Or you can try to find a needle in a haystack, and at the end of the day, you will not be able to do this because there is too many variables and it will be like a pure guesswork. So, if you're asking me about navigating through this algorithm update, I am not worrying about them that much because I know that I'm not cutting corners and I know what that means to do good, right SEO. This is the same with e-commerce. You will see that bunch of products being removed and the traffic dropped. So in that case, I can pinpoint this. And I had one client, and they before they came to me, very short time before they came to me, they removed whole Spanish section. And I'm like, like, why you did this? Oh, because we are not having that many customers from Spain. I was like, listen, there is million and one reason why it would be better to keep the Spanish section if you had this than removing this like that, or at least you could redirect this and so on and so on and so on. Like, can you bring this back? No, we remove this permanently. Another client was like, removing call to actions because they had too many low quality leads. I'm like, this is probably not the way you should go. You should find a way to filter what is coming to you. Then they realized that actually translation, which was giving them about 4,000 to 5,000 visits a day, the leads from other countries are not that good, so they completely wiped all the translation. Their traffic dropped to 500, because all the buckets of keywords that been equivalents of English in Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Polish, Lithuanian, and so on and so on, wiped, And that was another thing. Like, I wouldn't go that way, but if they authoritatively decide, I can only suggest.
It's almost like SEO is the long game, isn't it? It's very easy to get bogged down in like the nitty gritty. If you look on Ahrefs and your traffic drops, or you've moved from position 1 to position 3 for your target keyword, it's very easy, I think, especially for small businesses, for them to like almost let panic set in. Like, what have I done wrong? I must have had something broken. I need to fix something, and go into almost like quick fixes.
And you mentioned one of the big fluff about SEO. I'm hardly thinking about SEO like this keyword on that position. Of course, there are exceptions. One of the very hard industries, poker. Yeah, poker have relatively short tail, and everything thereafter the long tail is it could be omittable. But now think about this. There is the client, and he's coming to me and saying like, I want to be on that keyword in top 5. And I'm saying like, listen, you want to have a traffic, constant growth of the quality traffic that will start converting. No, we need to be. I was like, okay, this keyword is relatively easy. If you really want, I can try to make you ranking in top 5. 2 months later, they are on position 5, and they're coming back to me and saying like, we don't have a traffic. I'm like, this is what I was saying from the day one. From the day one, that it's not really that much about this position, that position, and so on and so on and so on. It's much broader. And then other companies are doing the same, and there is more and more and more and more companies. Then the cost of SEO, especially for agencies, the cost of SEO is rising to the roof. Then they need to rise their fees, and at the end of the day, there is like no one is winning. So I'm always trying to find this third way.
It's kind of a similar approach we take with some of the clients we have with link building. A lot of the clients we speak to are very focused on specific keywords. I want to rank for this specific keyword. I want to get to this position. And what we try to share with clients is that, yes, whilst you want to focus on that keyword. Maybe you're in position 10 and you want to boost it. The key thing to remember specifically with link building is we're not link building to a specific keyword. We're link building to a specific page. We're proving that this page, this website is an authority, that this website is trustworthy. And in turn, by focusing on that page as opposed to the specific keyword, you're allowing yourself to improve rankings for multiple keywords, improving traffic for multiple keywords, and it's almost trying to remove that tunnel vision of that one keyword, being too focused on that, and focus on, like you say, that holistic approach.
Yeah, because sometimes you also are dealing with the ego game that, especially for small and maybe mid-sized companies, like the head or the CEO is like, I must rank there with that keyword or this keyword, and so on and so on. And they not taking into consideration that above the results there are paid ads, maybe the AI box, maybe the featured snippets, and plenty of other keywords is there. I remember my days in Newswitch, and we were doing this kind of clever game, and I'm also using metaphor, like the solar system. The sun is the core of the keywords that are important, but you have also this planet like Venus, Mars, Earth, and Mercury, which are circulating close enough to the sun. You don't want to go to where the Jupiter is or like Pluto, because that's too far. On the other hand, I remember my meeting with a competitor, and we were talking about credit cards. And it was very interesting story because they've been number one for a long time. And they were coming, we were chatting on one of the search awards. And their team was like, this is frustrating because we have this expectation that we will be growing 10% every year. And we are hitting the ceiling because the country is not made out of the rubber. It cannot stretch forever. So yet another reason why you should always think much broader, much longer, maybe languages, and maybe that's a good moment to mention this very briefly for people who are listening to us. Do not afraid to go with languages as long as you are not like a local plumber, when of course you will be dealing with the local community. I always hear that kind of pushback, which is like, oh, you want to go with French language, but we only can say au revoir. And it's like, it's not about you and saying au revoir. It's about the fact that people who are searching, they're searching in their language, but you can't assume that they don't speak English. I speak Polish, is my first language, yeah, despite from the fact I'm using English probably more often. And I still search sometimes some keywords in Polish, and it doesn't mean that I don't speak English. And recently I had a new client, which is a law firm, especially dealing with this immigration things and so on and so on. And we immediately started discussion about where the clients are from. And the clients are from China and from Turkey. And it would make so much sense to translate website into Turkish and Chinese. Yeah. Think about this. Turkey, it's like 80 million or 90 million people. China, billion, yeah? But there is Indonesia, which they use a Latin alphabet, and the whole country speaks the one language, 260 million people. Of course, you need to take into consideration the purchase power and if the service can be sold to them and so on and so on. But I think for the lawyers, that makes lots of sense. And I know that we're talking here about AI translation, which may not be 100% correct. But if someone is coming to me and saying like, oh, we will do this manually, then I'm always saying like, listen, you have 360 blocks. To make them into one language by one person, it will take years. And you're talking about 5 languages. This idea immediately fall into pieces. It won't work. Either you can sacrifice a little of this quality and give people this kind of ability to reach you, or I don't see any alternative. So it's also about this kind of, making consideration of the resources that needs to be involved. In the utopian world, you would have infinite resources. You could write a Shakespeare-like pages in Chinese, Japanese, and so on and so on. Especially that, like I mentioned, Korean and Japanese. People in Korea and Japan, they are not using English like we used to in Europe, which is almost everywhere. Whole Scandinavia is English fluent. There, to reach people there, you need really to have a website in Japanese or in Korean and so on and so on.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to meet your audience, not just on the platforms that they are, but in the languages they speak, and then kind of
Absolutely.
like where they are natively. And I think that's part of SEO that's never changed, because I know that you've been in SEO marketing for over 20 years, and I'm sure there's things that worked 20 years ago that still work today, such as knowing your audience and how to speak to them and where to speak to them. But there's going to be things that, you know, worked even like last year that don't work now. So what are some of like those things that you can talk about a little bit? So what used to work really, really well, and what maybe now doesn't have the same impact that maybe people are focusing on when they should be focusing on like these up and coming things like AI and
I think AI right now is giving lots of opportunities. However, it can be used a very wrong way. The content generation is very simple right now and easily scalable. But if that makes no kind of, if it's not used with some kind of common sense, then it's like hockey stick and then, you're going down. What I would say, what was working back in the day, there was lots of this kind of, you would say, a black gray hat tactic, some sneaky redirects, drop domains, um, scraped content. And I would say that these things are slowly dying. On the other hand, going long tail, especially when you see this AI box, which SEMrush is starting to measure, very often you will see there this how, what, why, when questions that appear in this AI box, and you want to be there. I still have sometimes calls, would like to be first on keyword books, and I'm like, no, you don't want to be. You really don't want to be first on keyword books, but like top 10 books for teenager, yeah, that is one of the keyword, or like what to read, what is popular this month, and so on and so on. These things have a chances to rank on top of the search. And of course, keeping eye on ChatGPT itself and other AI chats, because it is more and more popular. I do not believe that there will be a massive shift in anywhere soon from Google to this tools, but it can expand opportunity of traffic. So it can be additional source of traffic rather than replacing Google.
that makes complete sense. And as you say, it's like AI is there to assist you, but it's not there to take over. And I think marketing will always need to come from an authentic place, especially like if you're in a position where you're trying to help other people, help other businesses. You have to genuinely, truly care about what you're doing and like being able to help them long term. Because it's not just the quick fixes that used to work before, it's about having that long term growth. So you're not freaking out when your traffic dips on Ahrefs because there's a core update, because you know that what you're doing day in, day out is going to have a benefit, and like a compound benefit as well.
Absolutely. And, I think that there are a bunch of companies that understand this, and some companies who would even say like, we don't want to do SEO because of this or that. I can only try to convince them to certain point, after which, like there is one of the company that said like, oh, we are not going into content, we will be doing webinars. All right. I think that you should go with this and that, but when you see that after 2 content writers, the first one left, wasn't replaced, the second one left, wasn't replaced, then they let go SEO executive and they saying like they will not be doing this, then you're thinking that this is very wrong, because lots of big companies are so big because of the fact that people can find them in Google. And as we mentioned, ChatGPT, you see, there is a very big distinction between queries that I personally typing in Google and ChatGPT. So when I'm searching something in this very classic way, I'm going to Google. But when I'm searching something that my brain knows, it will be very hard for Google even to find documents or any pages that fall into that many conditions. And I will give you an example. Talking about Zoopla, and I'm sometimes searching probably top 10 locations in UK to purchase this house that are either with the mountains or with the sea and with very low crime, where properties are cheap. So it must be mountains or sea, low crime and cheap property. And I know that Google will show me something, because Google is always showing something, but it will be far away from all these 4 conditions. And very often ChatGPT can find this, or let's say, I know that IMDb can do this, but I like movie like Pi, Requiem for a Dream, Train Spotting. Based on that, give me additional 5 movies that I would probably like to watch. Yeah. I know that maybe if I would dig deeper, I would find some website which would do the same, but for ChatGPT, it's easier. And I know that I won't find this information in Google. So overall, that can open our mind to be a bit more creative, paradoxically.
I guess it's that extended query, isn't it? It's that extended research to give some insight. I've used ChatGPT a lot recently to help with marathon training and answering questions in terms of recovery and fitness and nutrition. And like you said, I could probably find this information on Google after a number of searches trying to find these different articles. But ChatGPT has been fantastic for me summarizing the information I actually need, the information I actually want, and using that towards my training. And like you said, I think there's definitely a shift in terms of how people are using Google search and how people are using AI search and how they're using both in very unique ways to get the best result for exactly what they're looking for.
Agree. Yeah.
Awesome. We've gone off on a bit of an AI tangent now, which was quite nice. Bringing this back into the chat, obviously we've discussed how things have changed recently. We'll make this a little bit relevant to Rhino Rank. Link building. How has it changed for you over the last 20 years, and what kind of tactics do you use from a link building perspective to help your clients?
When you have a Polish background like me, you coming from the environment where back in the day, SEO was almost like a synonym for a link building. And it's still like that in Poland, when I think that link building should be an integral part of many other things. That's why we mentioned the long tail SEO. We mentioned other things, translation, and so on and so on. And then finally, we're getting into link building. I think, for small websites, this link building for the brand name, for the homepage, just to give them slight boost. But again, doing this just to kind of give them a nudge rather than thinking that now everything can fall into that link building bucket and that will do an SEO. Because, like I had a chat with one of the guy they wanted to be in top 10 for the keyword SEO, and they are now number 5, and they spend something like 250,000 pounds for link building. And I was like, this is not the way to go. Yeah. So I think it should be an integral part of your strategy. You should do this, mm, you know, uh, smart way, I would say. So promoting the brand name, the pointing links to the homepage, that would be the way to go. Potentially a couple of other landing pages or blog posts which have a chances to rank on keywords that are tied to that URL. And then there is always this kind of, measurement aspect. Yeah. And the way how I like to measure is not exactly like we were saying, like not a specific keyword ranking, rather the traffic that is going to the specific URL from search before and after. So we have a couple of URLs. We know that we put some backlinks there. We know that the nominal traffic was X. And now we can see if the nominal traffic went up by X amount of percent. So in conclusion, I think it should be like a nice dish, where you have, meat, potatoes, some broccoli, and there are spices and all that works. And so the link building is a part of the strategy, rather than like some people are believing that they can just go and buy some backlinks and that will do it. That is an equivalent for it.
100%. I think you have to consider that holistic approach when we take into consideration EEAT, for example, Google's double EAT. The typical thing that we share with clients, whilst we are a link building agency, we only link build. We ensure that they're aware that there's so many other factors at play, and that's one thing that they have to consider. And the thing that I often discuss with clients is that comparison when they say, my competitor is position 3, I want to get to position 2, and it's, I just need to link build. Yes, I agree, you likely need to link build, but you also have to take into consideration the other factors: on-page SEO, technical SEO,
Yes.
content, for example, and it's that almost naivety to ignore the other factors. If we compare a client's website with a competitor's website, for example, and we see that the competitor has a similar link building portfolio to our client, but their site is much more optimized, their content is better. Links, I'll be honest, probably aren't really going to do a lot. Google's going to prefer to present the other site because it's solving that query better for the searcher. Whereas if they're on par, the content is as good, the site is as well optimized, links are really going to help because you are then becoming more trustworthy in comparison to your competitor. So that's absolutely crucial for us. And having that, you obviously mentioned as well, understanding of what approach to take for specific clients. Do you focus on the homepage with a brand name? Do you focus on specific pages with partial anchor text? Having that understanding of what type of campaign to run based on their current stature in SEO and their link portfolio, that's crucial. Instead of taking a one size fits all approach, if we look at a smaller business, like you say, they've only just started, been running for 6 months, they've got 25 referring domains. We need a foundation for a start. We need to build some level of authority with Google. We need to show you're growing in popularity. If we have a multi-million-pound e-commerce business that's got 2,000 referring domains, okay, yes, we still need to build brand authority, but that's when we can start to focus on maybe some category pages, maybe some product pages, maybe some service pages, depending on where they are. So for us, it's very much a case of we try to provide that recommendation in a very similar sense to how you likely would, like a consultant would, or like an SEO agency would, whilst also saying we don't do that. We just do the link building, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Could only echo that, especially that example with the e-commerce. Yeah, it's different story when you have e-commerce, which is, operating for years and have nothing there, and different story when you have something that just started.
Awesome. Jess, do you want to take us through to the next section? I think we've mulled on section one very, very good. I think that's been great.
Yeah, so I think the next touch point that I wanted to discuss is almost like if somebody was very new to SEO, they've maybe just got that new startup that Jack has referred to. What kind of traditional SEO methods and then new SEO methods should they really be focusing on? Because it's very easy, I think, to get overwhelmed in marketing when you first kind of take a look at it. There's so much they could do. They can get told, okay, you need to have social channels and you need to be active every day on all of them. You need to be producing blog content on a daily basis. Have you tried, YouTube shorts? What about going on, X, Y, and Z? I think there's probably some fundamental points, maybe like, I don't know, they do an audit of what they've got so far, then they have to create a plan. But it's like, what's in that plan that they should really focus their attention on, at least initially?
Yeah, so you see, like from my experience, what really works is a gap analysis. We versus our competitors. And I'm always explaining this to potential client. This is like you would say, where are they ranking on? And I am not yet, but I would probably like to. Yeah. And then I'm preparing this and I'm not only finding these keywords, but also grouping them into topics. And I'm also looking on at least two competitors simultaneously ranking, which is giving me a sense of relevancy. And I don't have like a random brand names ranking somewhere. And then it's always the building content. I think that content is like the most important part of any campaign. Sometimes you have this kind of feedback that, yeah, we have content because we have lots of PR articles. Unfortunately, PR articles are hardly evergreen. They just are tied to some events that happened recently and they will be relevant for a very short time. Some companies are like trying to build a news section. Like you are not like a Daily Mail, and if you are not a multi-million company, you will probably hardly get any benefit from writing this. You mentioned social media. As much as for SaaS, LinkedIn can be a good way to go, I still see that kind of situation that there is lots of money in the hiring people who will be posting daily basis something on Facebook. It doesn't generate any kind of traction or very fractional traction, doesn't give any benefits to the business, but they're doing this because they believe and they think that this is the way to go. I think that the content is a dominant part of every website. At the end of the day, Google is indexing documents and every page can be treated as a document. Yeah. So if you ask me what works, gap analysis, or for e-commerce, this, I love this example. Looking at the keywords which are ranking low, very low, and having the right content would bring these keywords up. For e-commerce, what is the right content? Of course, blog post can be, but it's rather category, or maybe the product. And that's the way to go. And I remember I had like one client who was dealing really with the men's formal cloth accessories and so on, and he said, like, why these guys are my competitor, but they have so many keywords and they are so much bigger. And I just checked this and I was like, listen, they also are selling for female stock. They have all the female gloves. And he's like, well, they probably doing this mainly for SEO because I know that it's very fractional activity for them. I'm like, maybe, yes. And if we go deeper, then, products is another form of content. But here is a bit of like, a scary situation, because when you go out of stock, that page technically should be 404 or should be redirected. Empty pages will hardly be ranking. So you really want to make sure that you always have this product or that product in the stock when you know that there is lots of traffic and very good keywords tied to that product page, because you know that if this product will go out of stock, you not only lose a chance to sell that product, but you will also drop in the rankings because you lost that page, that page, that page, that page. Yeah.
I was going to say, and all that information is what you can find when doing a gap analysis. You can, do your research, your competitors, you compare what they're doing and how they're doing it versus what you're doing. That's how you can find your low-hanging keywords and maybe missed opportunities. But how often does that like gap analysis need to be reanalyzed? Because things can change so quickly. You can have a look at a competitor one day, you can get a plan in place, and then couple of days, couple of weeks later, maybe they've gone down a different avenue and it's either worked or it hasn't.
Mhm.
I think it's always important to, refresh and re-audit what you're doing, but how often is too often and how often is not often enough?
There is no such thing like too often. Everything depends on execution. The most important part is like we're not doing this for sake of doing, because you don't want to start dumping lots of gap analysis that are not executed. You want
Yeah.
to start adding, you want to start creating this added value through the fact that there is a gap analysis, and then we are executing this way or that way. We are writing blog posts, we are creating knowledge base, we are creating additional categories, we are bringing additional stock because we know that this product are searched in Google, and then we can go. So it can be a couple of weeks, it can be a couple of months, depends how fast business can digest what been created. Some businesses can do this in a couple of weeks and then potentially, bringing different competitors. I was doing something what I called super gap. That is when you're going with more than 5 competitors, you need to first export this keyword and then do a bit of math in the Excel. And I was going with the golf equipment manufacturers, and I put like a big spreadsheet of 50 different websites, and there was lots of keywords that been really, I was never working with anyone in this industry, but there was lots of keywords that I knew immediately that it will be something important. I knew immediately that if I will be talking to one of the business owners, he will be like, this dude knows what he's talking about, despite from the fact he's an SEO, and despite from the fact he never been dealing with any companies like mine. Going back to your question, I think it's everything depends how well that organization can digest, because we as a SEO, we can provide a lot of data, but I don't want to have the situation that I was facing with, let's say, 15 years ago when I was in-house and we had an SEO agency, and every month we were getting like book like that with reports, lots of charts, lots of numbers, and nobody had even time to go through this. Give me like 3 pages with findings, execution, and the next steps, and that probably would be much more valuable than, you know, from one side, dumping lots of gap analysis and expecting that this will change the optic. It will only when it will be executed.
It's data for the sake of data. It's reports for the sake of reporting. Yeah, we've seen it ourselves, and we can build reports on the links we build for clients, the results we see, even our own marketing. But what do you actually do with that information? And it's making sure that the information and the data and the reporting that you use in that sense is actionable, is you can use it for something valuable, like you say. And the one example I had when you were talking about doing something for the sake of doing something, if it's category page link building, I've seen plenty of examples in the past with clients of just having a category page for the sake of having a category page. And from a link building point of view, for us, it's much better for us to have a category page that actually holds value, that actually ranks. Because for all intents and purposes, link building needs to be a case of you should be getting that link because that link is valuable to the searcher, to the reader who's reading that piece of content. If we're just building a link to a category page that isn't really giving any value, there's no valuable content on that category page, why does that link exist? Purely for the purpose of link building. Yes, obviously we want to help build authority, we want to build trust, but we want to do it as organically as possible. We want to build these links whereby if we're building a link to a category page, it's giving value to that searcher, giving value to that reader. And that's crucial, and definitely not doing something for the sake of just doing it, just because you can say, I've pulled a report, I've got this data, I'm building links to a category page. It has to provide value to your campaign.
I agree. I agree. And then interpretation of this data and action behind it, this data, that's are the two major points that should be in the consideration. Colorful charts doesn't change anything. That's why I'm always telling to everyone who potentially is much younger than me and creating some presentation. Every time you're doing like a slide with a big chart, write 3 bullet points below what that means, what we can do with that. Because the chart itself may look beautiful, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, what do you get from looking at that chart? If you can interpret the chart easily, fantastic. But like you say, if there's 3 brief summary points that allows you to understand what the chart is about, fantastic. Awesome. Jess, do you have any other questions?
I think just before we wrap up for today, I know that we've discussed quite a lot detail, and we've talked just now about like, you know, the 3 things that people need to be doing, which is like do your gap analysis, get your keyword clusters, write your content, and then, you know, audit and reevaluate as and when like your business kind of allows you to do that and time allows you to do that. And we've talked about the mistake of getting lost in data as well. But are there any kind of common mistakes that businesses tend to make, which, you know, we can advise them now not to?
From my experience, one of the big mistakes is that some companies are thinking that bringing in-house SEO, no matter what the experience the guys have or girls, the fact that they will be in-house is changing a lot because that person will be 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And, you know, if you have a good PPC consultant, if you have a good SEO agency, if you have a good SEO freelancer, do not change this for sake of changing because you believe that somebody will come in-house, and the fact that they are working in-house will make such a big difference because it very often opposite.
Yeah, it's almost like don't be afraid to seek out those specialists because they're specialists for a reason. You quite often see, you know, for yourself specializing in SEO, you get others that specialize in purely social media PPC, like purely Meta. You get others that specialize in maybe organic social. So everybody's kind of got their passion. So yes, you might need to use agencies or use consultants, but having that team around you, that's kind of where you can get the most benefit. And it's finding people that also have the same values. So some people that are as invested in your company almost as you are, not more so, but you both have that same goal and drive to grow.
I agree. Absolutely.
Awesome. Wow. Lukasz, thank you very much. That's been brilliant. Thank you for being a guest on our new podcast series. But before we call this time, do you have any questions for us? I know we've almost interrogated you a little bit. You've given us some fantastic insights. But do you have any questions for Jess or I?
Yeah, when you're going to expand into other countries.
Jack, I think I'll leave that one with you.
That's a great question, and it's a question we get asked a lot. In terms of expanding into other countries, obviously, right now you'll know we can link build for pretty much any country. We can only work with English content. With the development of AI, maybe this could be something we look to in the future in terms of translation. Right now, I'll be honest, it's not on the books. We've got a couple of things we'd like to try and expand into this year, but definitely that could be worth considering with how useful and how easy AI is to use to help us expand into these other countries and primarily these other languages. But right now, I don't have a solid answer for you, I'm afraid.
You want to share what you're planning to go with this year?
So there's a couple of things. We would love to be able to offer more of a managed service to our clients. We have kind of shifted Rhino Rank to offer more recommendations. We have fantastic account managers in house right now, and our team is expanding. But we would love to be able to offer that almost managed offering to clients, whereby if they've never link built before, they don't have experience in this. Right now, they don't really have the option to get recommendations other than by booking a call. Whereas we'd love to be able to say, okay, let's help you. Let's go and give you this service in terms of a link building managed service.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I think that concludes our podcast for today. Obviously, Lukasz, again, thank you so much for joining us. If you did enjoy the podcast, if you enjoyed listening, if you enjoyed watching, please leave us a like, leave us a comment if you'd like to, and subscribe, and keep an eye out for some more in the future.
Thank you for having me, and good luck. Yeah, I think I would also like to say thank you for everyone who listen us, who is watching this. Remember, SEO is very exciting.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. If you liked what you heard, make sure to follow the podcast, drop us a like, drop us a comment. We'd love to hear how you're applying these insights and strategies to your business. We've got more brilliant guests lined up, so stay tuned for the next episode. Until then, this is Jack and Jess signing off. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.